Talking hardball, part of betting weekly. Handicappers, they're all in.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of Betting Weekly Hardball. It is day 3. Along with Doug Kezirian, I'm Adam the Bull. And, Doug, here we go. I had a rough night last night. My picks were terrible, but this is going to happen sometimes, Doug. Got to bounce back today. How about you? How did you do?
Yeah, the worst beat you had was the biggest underdog, right? Plus 188. You had the lead in the 9th inning. That pays a lot of that makes up for a lot of losers sometimes when you can hit a long shot like that. I had the White Sox a couple days ago for a half unit at plus 440 with the same game parlay. Got the prop, just needed the White Sox to deliver. Of course, you get what you asked for. But
That's right.
Things did not go my way in a couple games. Did well on Monday, so I think I'm like plus half a unit or something so far on the week. But you're right. It's ebbs and flows. A week, a day is really like an arbitrary sample size. Need to understand that. But it's also important to take good numbers, smart plays, value plays, things like that to think it through. And I probably would redo a couple things if I had some revisionist history from yesterday.
If, you go with the data, right? Sometimes there's always gut involved on some level when it comes to betting. But if your reasoning for making a bet is sound, then you're going to do better. You're going to hit more often than you don't if your reasoning makes sense. But in the end, there's no exact science to any sport. There's nobody that's going to predict all the games right. You do better than 50%, you're doing well. So that's why it's gambling. If you got it right all the time, there'd be no gamble. But you can't. It's kind of, in a way, like the stock market. You can't live and die by it every single day. But unlike the stock market, it's actually fun because you get to watch games while you're making the bets.
Right. I've always said, it's like that famous line in Trading Places with Eddie Murphy, Dan Aykroyd, and the Dukes are explaining to Billy Ray Valentine, which is Eddie Murphy's character, about what they do. And Eddie Murphy says, sounds to me like you guys are a couple of bookies, which it is similar. I mean, you really want to kind of scrutinize it's a company or a stock is based a group of people. So a group of people like stock or investors are evaluating the performance of a group of people, a company, based on on anticipation or projections. And that's what sports is. A group of people, bettors, are betting on a group of people, a team, on how they're going to perform in relation to projections. So it's very similar in that regard. And you mentioned, ups and downs. It's kind of like that jagged edge of a stock. It's not just a flat line. It's a jagged edge, but you hope it's an incline and not a decline.
You mentioned Eddie Murphy, and that makes me think how sad it is that he's no longer funny. It's very depressing because Eddie Murphy, when we were kids, was the funniest guy. Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy took over, I feel like, the mantle, and those movies were awesome. And now I find nothing funny that he does. It's very sad. Maybe you're of a different opinion on that. Do you?
Oh, I love Eddie. I don't know his material now or whatever, but he was like 21 years old when he did Raw or something or Delirious or something. Just peak throwing 105 mile per hour fastballs. It's just epic.
Too bad we couldn't bet on how many curses he's going to drop in the show. I don't know. Now you can bet on everything. But anyway, there's a lot to get to. If you're new to the show, Doug is on the show every day. I'm on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. There's also a second show, Doug, if you want to promote that, a basketball betting show, which is coming your way at 3:00 Eastern.
Yeah, top of the hour. So back to back, really as the games are around the corner, and actually we have baseball on a lot of times during the day, but Betting Weekly fast break. We're going to break down obviously basketball, and right now it's the NBA playoffs. Tomorrow we're only going to have one NBA game, but we'll look at some WNBA futures. I did really well last summer in the W. It's probably my best sport, so something you may want to tune into. But today we'll try to process what's been going on in this second round of the NBA playoffs, upset after upset. And I know you're, especially with your background there, Adam, locked into the Cavaliers, and it's been a stunning start, to say the least.
I went off on the team last night in my post-game show. I mean, Donovan Mitchell plays the game of his life, and the team around him just let him down in an all-time And Cleveland is no stranger to all-time epic losses, football, baseball, and basketball, but that was right on the top 10 of the list with the way they just collapsed. By the way, real quick on WNBA, because you mentioned it, I saw the other day, I was watching the Indiana Fever were playing the Brazil national team, and Caitlin Clark, who's already a great player and obviously the biggest story in women's basketball, she got jacked over the offseason. Did you see that?
Well, she's always been kind of jacked, to be
Yeah,
honest.
but
when
she took it to another
flexes.
level now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Obviously she's a professional now. Fewer games like the college, over the season, can focus on it. Because last year, I mean, you think about it, back to back, when college and then pro season, that's a long stretch. So she was able to weight train and commit herself. And there was a lot of people believing the nonsense. Oh, just wait till she gets to the professionals. I was laughing at that stupid talk.
Yeah.
I was one of only a few people who thought she'd be excellent right out of the gates. I betted her to win MVP. She finished like 5th, but I thought she'd be a stud, and she's a co-favorite or second favorite right now coming into this season. I laughed, whether it be former players, current players, or just fans who thought she would struggle in the WNBA.
Yeah, that was pretty stupid thought by a lot of people. By the way, there will be a WNBA team in Cleveland in 2028, and I am pushing every button to try to get that play-by-play job. I want that play-by-play job. Let's go. All right, let's get to some baseball. Real quick, there are games going on right now. Obviously, if you're watching this show later in the day, those games may be over, but just to quickly go over it, Guardians leading the Nationals 8-3 in the bottom of the 6th. Guardians, Doug, put up an 8 spot in the top of the 6th, despite only getting 1 extra base hit in that inning. An 8 spot. That's hard to do with 1 extra
Tough beat on the under if you had it. 3-0 game in the 6th and an 8 spot will certainly do you in.
Real quick on the other games, the Brewers trail the Astros 4-1. That game's going to the 5th. The Cardinals up 2-0 on the Pirates in the 4th. And the Giants and Cubs are just about to get underway in 15 minutes. So let's start there, Doug. Last night, a wild game. Giants had a 5-3 lead in the 9th. One of the few picks I hit on was the over in that game. To get it, the Cubs had to tie it in the bottom of the 9th. Neither team scored in the 10th, and then the Giants scored 9 runs in the 11th. This is the rubber game of the series. Robbie Ray, Ben Brown is the pitching matchup. Again, the game starts in about 12 minutes. What are you thinking in this game? What do you like there, Doug?
So obviously Robbie Ray's been pretty solid this year. His numbers sort of display that. But if you look closely, he's been a little bit of a nibbler against the better lineups. So Yankees, Phillies, 4 and 5 walks. The walks, I worry, are going to get him into trouble here on the north side. So I wanted to lay the lumber a little bit, with or take the plus money of the Giants. But I just don't know if this is the spot. You got to plan on some aggression. We're going to talk about some other players, some pitchers going today like Max Fried that sometimes the regression's coming. But if you're going to get involved, we were fading yesterday some pitchers as well that we thought like Zach, just the fact that we thought there was a little misgivings there. But for me, it's Giants or pass, but ultimately it's a pass. I don't want to get involved. I tried to fade Zach Gallen yesterday, but just didn't, I did. I'm saying I tried to win, couldn't get there. So I'm a little gun shy, I guess is the way to put it.
For me in this game, I'm making the same pick I made yesterday. I'm just taking the over. Yesterday it was 8. Today it's 7. The wind is blowing in, so that it did make me a little hesitant. We know the wind can play a factor at Wrigley Field, and obviously it's a huge hitter's park when the wind is blowing out, and it's more of a pitcher's park when the wind is blowing in. But sometimes when the wind is blowing in, it could also create some havoc that leads to singles and doubles and balls dropping in there that you don't expect. Ben Brown pitched well last time out, but I don't trust him week in, week out. You talked about some of the concerns with Robbie Ray, and the Cubs are really good at working counts.
Right.
And the Cubs and Giants, in terms of the over, they're the 2 of the 3 best teams in terms of overs this season. So I like the over. That's it. I'm with you on the stay away of the game as a whole.
Yeah, when do you think the market's going to catch up to maybe this Cubs offense? We talked about it yesterday,
Right.
and look, they only had 3 runs going into the bottom of the ninth, but seven's a low number. I get
Really?
it that Robbie Ray's pitching, but these lineups can. This is not the Giants of a couple years ago where they could barely score. I think there's some offense in both lineups here. Obviously, Chicago for sure.
Yeah. And I was shocked that it was 7, especially after being 8 last night. Maybe it's the wind. Maybe that's why it's
Yeah,
so low today. I guess that could be a reason, but nothing. I love day baseball. It's so good having so many games. There's too many days when there's not day baseball. And even though the Cubs have lights at Wrigley Field, I still love when they play afternoon games during the week. That was a staple for a lot of people our age, as a kid watching WGN wherever you lived.
it was, and I'm glad they added the lights and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
there should be day baseball on every day the entire summer, in one of these parks. I just don't get it. But I'm not commissioner of baseball. Last time I checked.
All right, let's move on to another interesting game here. And on paper, a great pitching matchup. The Padres and the Yankees. We talked a lot about this matchup yesterday. I had a lot of reasons for liking the Padres, and it all went to hell when the Yankees put up a 10 spot. I can't remember now if it was the bottom of the 7th or the bottom of the 8th, but they exploded in that game. One of the stats I mentioned yesterday was that the Yankees have not lost with Max Fried on the hill, and they've been not as good. They've been under 500 without him. I know you like a couple of things in this game, so let's get your thoughts on this one. Yankees, pretty significant favorite at -177.
Yeah, I don't want to lay it. Fried's been great this year. I
Yeah.
mean, how can you argue with his numbers? An ERA of barely over 1, but I just wonder if there's regression coming, sort of that in that park in the Bronx. Like I will back him on the road the rest of the season if he's going to start pitching this effectively. But he does get fly balls, and I worry about the ball carrying at Yankee Stadium. For the most part, he's kept things on the ground, but he does get fly ball outs, and that's a concern. And this Padres lineup, I know they didn't deliver yesterday and really the day before because they didn't get any runs till the 8th. But I can't get there. But I want to bet on him being effective, so I do like singling out pitchers props. So I'm going to go Max Fried. I just worry that the bullpen is so solid. Under 18 and a half outs. So 18, you divide by 3 is 6.
Yep.
So if he gets 6 innings and then no more outs, under cashes. So if he gets touched up and pulled, or if he gets pulled after 6 innings, that's a win. So if he gets an out in the 7th, then that's a loss. But under 18 and a half, -110, he's been, he's gone half of his innings, half of his outings are past 6 innings. So, but I just think regression's coming, and the Yankees bullpen can step up for sure. And I just don't know if Boone's going to want to see him go third time through the lineup. And that's typically not good for pitchers. So if it's a short game, I can see him getting pulled after 6. And then there's always the regression component. And that's why I would side with the under. I think it's just a sell high opportunity on Max Fried. And again, I don't think it's a good, match with the stadium and the short porch.
Yeah, and we talked about this yesterday too. Pitchers are just not pitching into the 7th that often anyway.
Right.
Even as good as he is, it's just it doesn't. It happens sometimes certainly, but it's not something that teams consistently do. That pitchers consistently do. Obviously, the Padres have a good lineup, but you also like the under on Dylan Cease's innings.
Yeah, and this is a fade of Cease, who just hasn't been the same.
Yeah.
Part of me says you throw out one game where he played in that Oakland ballpark or Sacramento ballpark and he gave up 9 earned. Outside of that, he's been decent, like a lot of 4 or 5 inning outings, giving up a couple earned. But his pitch count's been at 90 range. There was one in the 70s. So he will work some high pitch counts. He's a high strikeout pitcher as well. And I do think Boone's going to have his guys working counts and stuff like that. This lineup will work counts. So I don't think it's a good match for Cease to get past 5. I do think he's a little better than the numbers indicated. Again, you take out that one outing where he went 4 innings, 9 earned. but he's still a high volume pitcher. So I don't think we see a pitcher's duel with both guys into the 6th and 7th. I just don't. I think Cease under 15.5 outs minus a $1.14. I'm going to do a half unit on each of those props. I think that's the right way to play it. You have a good chance of going 1-1 because just natural, baseball, if you will. But I think these pitchers can get yanked. I'm okay with, the potential of 0-2, but I like my 2-0 chances as well.
You talk about pitcher props. There's a pitcher prop that I like in this one, and it's also involves Dylan Cease, and it for the same reason that you just mentioned a bunch of things as to why I like this prop. He's run high pitch counts almost every game without going deep into any games.
Right.
So he's averaging 19 pitches per inning, which would lead you to believe, well, maybe it should be the under. But I actually like the over because on the road, first of all, he's throwing more than that. He's throwing almost 21 pitches per inning on the road. And the Yankees are one of the best teams in baseball at getting on base. And Aaron Judge in particular, who right now is the best hitter in baseball and in the last few years has been, along with Juan Soto and Ohtani, the best in baseball. But Aaron Judge is getting on base at a ridiculous rate. And so it feels like almost a guarantee in this situation that Aaron Judge will get on base. And so I see at least a minimum of 4 hitters coming up for the Yankees in this inning. And my guess is they get 5 batters to the plate minimum in the first inning. I think Dylan Cease will throw 25 pitches in the first inning easy because the command hasn't been great, because the Yankees are good at taking walks. So I like the over 19.5 pitches thrown by Dylan Cease.
I got to say, I've never made this wager. I've never seen it. I didn't realize that was something you could wager on. This is fantastic. I think it's a really good breakdown. I'm a big advocate in singling out a wager that you think isolates your handicap or your angle, your perceived edge, and then fire on it. I think it's a great sweat. I had a Nerfy yesterday. I have one today coming up, but this is nice. Like, you're rooting for foul balls. Not even full counts. You're rooting for a million. I mean, you can get 19 pitches in one at bat, just foul ball after foul ball after foul ball. What a sweat. What an exciting wager. So bravo to you, Adam. I'm jealous. I'm envious and jealous.
It's funny that you say you didn't know that existed, because I didn't either when I woke up this morning that you could make that bet. And this morning when I'm looking for some plays, I was like, I like this game. And I was like, I want to do something on this game. And I was like, I'm not taking the Yankees at minus 177. I don't feel good enough about the Padres plus 148. I was like, well, maybe the over, but I wasn't totally confident because Max Fried could pitch a gem. I could see that happening, and maybe the Yankees winning 6-1 or something like that. But so I was like, let me look. Let's get into the weeds here. And then I saw Dylan Cease, and I was actually surprised he's only averaging 19 pitches per inning, because I was like, oh, he's got to be averaging more than that. But then on the road, it was even worse, and the Yankees walk, and I'm like, oh, this is it. And then I find out if I'm a winner right away. What
a
bottom
sweat.
of the first. I like that. Also, I think when I was picking this, I said I was imagining myself as like a teenager in Brooklyn when I would have to fill out those, the football sheets that you'd get.
Sure.
I don't even know how the hell I got them. I don't even remember. But they probably weren't even legal. And I couldn't even the 19-year-old me imagining that I could bet on how many pitches a pitcher is going to throw in the first inning. Like, there was no way I could have imagined that as a kid,
Yeah, legally. I mean, you can do that stuff with your buddy.
Yeah,
because,
sure.
I've been in the golf clubhouse and things like that. And
Yeah.
we'll be watching, it's like, hey, a few bucks, you bet on the tee shot in the fairway.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you look out on a course and you can just bet on the next group behind you if they're going to par or not, just based on how they're dressed and maybe their warm-up swing. You can do all sorts of things like that. But to have it actually, that's great. That's great. I mean, look, we talk about the immediacy of baseball. Baseball is designed for betting, but usually you can bet on a half inning run or not, or hits or not, or whether there's going to be each batter. But this is nice. I like total pitches. This is good.
It is in that same vein of things you could bet on. Yesterday, I was out at the Little League field. I coach a Little League team, and somebody mentioned something about the Pope, and I was like, oh, yeah, they're going to announce a new Pope, I think, soon. And then I was like, you could probably bet on that. I didn't actually look it up, and I don't even know, maybe you can in America. I'm not sure. But I bet you in Europe, I bet you can bet on you can bet on anything now. Yeah, it's awesome. You can bet on who the next Pope is going to be. How do you handicap that? Doug, are you qualified to handicap who is the next Pope?
I know my lane. That is not one of my lanes.
All right. We need to find a Pope handicapper. In the meantime, we'll get back to baseball. This is a game we talked about yesterday, but it got rained out. You and I both had a lot of things that we liked about the Tigers against the Rockies. The game ends up getting rained out yesterday. They're going to play a doubleheader tomorrow. Single game tonight. You see 8:40 Eastern. Tigers, obviously, a pretty significant favorite. You and I both like the Tigers with the money line. On the run line, I believe. Doug, is that the case for you? At least?
Yeah, and I do. And we talked about it yesterday, obviously. We didn't get into the Dodger game yesterday, but we got into the Dodgers on Monday. And I laid the lumber with the run line and team total and everything. Yeah. And I didn't even consider it with the pitching matchup yesterday, given the Dodgers where their pricing is. And I think that's really important to remember. You can't just blindly fade bad teams and things like that. The market will catch up. But I do think it's a worthwhile discussion, given the Rockies only have 6 wins, that you can have that type of discussion with the Rockies. They're pitiful. The market is stubborn and may not catch up to just how much of an outlier season this is for Colorado. But I'm not afraid to lay it. I like Jackson Jobe enough for the Rockies. I mean, just a perspective, I said it yesterday, it's worth saying again today. The Rockies have the single worst performance on the money line all season. If you bet, $100 or whatever, they're minus 18.78 units. They are ridiculous. So at 6-28 record, I'll lay the run line. That extra run has a value depending on the game, depending on the home road team, whatever. But I think Tigers minus 1.5, minus 117 is a value play for me. I think Colorado's that bad. Nothing about the rain delay changed my opinion.
Doug, when you think about, these bad teams like the Rockies, I mean, and this year it's the Rockies are the extreme. Last year it was the White Sox, who were still bad, but so far not as bad as the Rockies. When you're debating, and you mentioned this about Monday with the Dodgers, with the Marlins, how, when you're deciding whether to get that run and lay the 1.5 runs, and obviously it's you're going to do that only in a case where I guess you could do it in other cases, but generally it's when one team is a significant favorite. How do you balance the price versus your chances of winning by giving up that extra run?
Well, I mean, I think with the Rockies, there was a run, not recently, but it was like 8 straight times their opponent had gone over their team total. So with Colorado, pitching's their Achilles heel. And I think what goes into the market and making these odds is data from past seasons. But if your data, i.e. your eye test, perceives a team being an outlier or bad, like there's going to be value. There's value on minus 182 in a lot of ways. But I'd rather just lay because I think you can grind it out. And the Tigers being on the road, so you're guaranteed 9th inning ups for sure, especially if it goes extra innings. You can definitely get a crooked number as opposed to the bottom half. You would need only a home run to cover the run line. I just, again, laying a lot of juice in baseball can get dangerous.
Yep.
But if the Tigers are going to handle their business, in my eyes, they're going to win by a significant amount. But I at some point it's not worth it. Like if it's minus 1.5, minus 140, then I'd rather lay the 182 on the money line than lay an extra run and only 40 cents better. So it's kind of like a gut feel because math shapes baseball in more ways than one, right? It shapes the money ball people in actual baseball.
Yep.
But it's also shaping the bettors in the betting market. So, minus 200 comes out to a 67% chance. So if you think a team has, and you're just, your gut, you think a team has better than a 67% chance to win, then minus 200 has value. So in this case, 182 is whatever the math is, maybe it's 60% or 58%. Like, I think there's a better chance, 61% than the Tigers win. So I do think minus 182 has value. So I'd be willing to fire on that. And then the run line as well. So it kind of just all depends on how you see things. But what you're saying is when you assess things, and this, you're comparing, you have to find a conversion, right? So the math guys shape the market and have their perception. What you're saying is, yeah, I get it, but my eye test thinks the Rockies are even worse. Like your own model or your own spreadsheet is your head, and saying, I understand that, but I think it's worse than what is currently in the market.
Yeah, and that's especially early in the season. You could take advantage of that, and I think it's a good process to go through. And ultimately, you got to believe in yourself and believe in your thoughts on that team, because obviously the numbers, as you said, play a big role. But it's also what's my gut telling me, which is your gut saying that the Rockies are worse than they're even being perceived to be. So I think
you have to have instincts, right?
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of guys who can break down games, but just can't pick a winner. Who know everything, they memorize every stat. They're even good at on air or whatever, and they can present some angles and things like that. But there just has to be some gut and some innate talent. And for me, I think it's just experience and scar tissue.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. I covered an NBA actually postseason trend because I turned to our researcher. I'm like, hey, will you look this up? I feel I've gotten my head kicked in like every year betting this, and it always loses. I bet you there's a good trend the opposite. And sure enough, there was like 10-1 in the last 11 scenarios. And I was like, oh, so yeah, I've paid my price. I've learned the valuable lesson the hard way by betting into this trend. So now I'm going to try to monetize it. I just think you have to have scar tissue. Hopefully it's early in your career when you have, low bankroll and aren't losing a lot, but there's just kind of a been there, done that kind of component to a lot of this stuff that you just have to have sort of a gut feel in my eyes. I mean, there's more ways there's multiple ways to skin a cat. But in my eyes, like I didn't take the bait yesterday on the Pacers. I didn't take the bait on the T-Wolves because I thought they were going to come in fat and happy up three, just having beat the Lakers in 5 games, and Minnesota's better as an underdog the last couple postseasons as opposed to the favorite. So I've learned the hard way in a lot of ways and didn't get beat up too badly on this extreme outlier first couple days of the second round.
One more thing before we move on from this game with the Rockies, because I'm always fascinated and on some morbid level excited when teams are particularly bad. I kind of revel in their awfulness. And you mentioned that their pitching is their weak point. I mean, which is true. I mean, but the whole thing, first of all, if you look at the pitching staff, the best ERA, to keep it simple, for their starting pitchers, Ryan Feltner, has a 4.75 ERA. That's the best of their starting pitchers, 4.75. They have 2 relief pitchers who have pitched pretty well. Jake Bird, and I'm drawing a blank on the I can't think of it right now. That the rest of their pitching staff has ERAs of 4.5 or higher. Their entire rotation stinks. So you're right. Their pitching's horrible. Now look at their hitting real quick. If you look at OPS, 691 is a bad OPS. That's well below average. They only have 2 players on their entire roster. And I'm including guys with like 7 at-bats, 20 at-bats, 8-5. They have 2 guys on the roster that have an OPS over 691. Jordan Beck, rookie outfielder, has an 891 OPS. That's very, very good. And Hunter Goodman, was a rookie last year, has an 801 OPS. Again, very good. That's it. The rest of the team is 691 or lower. They are, I mean, just across the board. They have like 2 relief pitchers pitching well, 2 hitters doing well, no starters. I mean, they have 4 players playing well at a 26. And you can say, well, some of those other guys will turn it around. Well, maybe. Like Bretton Doyle is a young player that I like on the Rockies, and he'll probably play better. Maybe Michael Tolia, their first baseman. I think their hitting at some point will be a little better, but there's no reason to believe their pitching is going to get any better. In fact, it could get worse because their bullpen has had at least a couple of guys who are not, I don't think, particularly good that are pitching well. So I don't think anything's changing with the Rockies. They're not going to get on some hot streak and become a decent team this year. I can't imagine that at all.
No, I mean, I know a lot of guys just hammering their under adjusted win total. I mean, they're on pace for like 25 wins. So like under 42 and a half, things like that. There's really no relief in sight, especially when you add the fact that they're in the NL West.
Right.
And they have to play, 19 times against each of those teams?
Yeah.
That's a tough ask.
Yeah. Well, every team in that division is good. So, yeah, It's tricky. By the way, that Giants-Cubs game is now just underway. And there's already a run on the board if you're looking for, if you're looking for the over, which I put out. The Giants just scored in the top of the first, a 2-out RBI single by Wilmer Flores. So already 1-0 in the top of the first. So if you bet on the Giants to score first, you're already a winner. There you go. All right.
How are we on the pitch count in the first inning?
Oh, yeah. All right. Let me give you that. So
I'm at 24, it looks like, for Ben Brown. So that's it over.
Yes. Yes, that's going. You're right. Already 24, and there's still one out to get here in the first inning, so that's looking good. All right, let's get to some other games here, Doug. I got a game I want to talk about with the Twins, but first I want to get to a couple of things that you like. Let's start with the Rangers at the Red Sox. You got a lot of action in this game.
Yeah, I'm gonna chop it up. I'm gonna talk about a lean and then 2 half-unit plays. Yesterday, we went the no-run first inning, affectionately known in betting circles as NERFY, as in the acronym, and YERFY would be the yes-run first inning. So I'm going to go NERFY, no-run first inning, -103 at BetRivers. Rangers and Red Sox. So the question is, why? I mean, we know about Fenway Park, not exactly a pitcher's park, but I'm going to start with Tanner Houck, who last year was off the charts amazing, right? Like he was this time last year, everyone was like, this guy's Cy Young material. He actually is not that good. He came back to earth, but he's been pretty effective, all things considered. He has one horrendous inning, and that's in Tampa Bay or the minor league park or whatever. 2 1/3, 11 earned runs. So got whacked. Throw that out, and he's actually doing just fine. So, and I know the odds maker or the bettors know that in the betting market and everything, but I just think he's he's a cross between like what he's pitched recently and then what he was pitching last year. He's not the gas can that gave up 11 earned. Now Tyler Mahle for the Rangers, he's fine and he gets the job done. He's been lights out this year. I mean, really lights out, a 1.19 ERA. And obviously he's not going to sustain that, but he's still effective. And I don't think a whole lot of these lineups, we've touched on the Rangers lineup being really just had a couple games recently. But besides that, I mean, they won 6-1 yesterday, I believe. I thought about backing them as well. But the Red Sox bat should wake up. But Houck is like, okay. He's probably like a 5 or 6 inning guy, 2 earned, 3 earned. But I'm going to go no run first inning. So I'm going to go under a half, -103, half unit play on that. But I'm also going to play the first 5 under 4.5 runs for another half unit, +107. So I believe in these starters. It can get dangerous with a number of 4.5. You kind of need both guys to pitch well. One guy can give up 4 or 3, and then the other guy really pitches well, 0 or 1. But that's why it's plus money. 5.5 is always a better number in this kind of a situation. But I think the lineups, man, again, if you can get through the first, and that's why I wanted it, they're obviously connected, right? If you can get through the first with a half unit, you got the back half of the lineups in innings 2 and 3. Like you can almost get there with like giving up 1 or 2 runs. I mean, the other night I had the Cardinals and Pirates, and they gave up a run in the 4th or 5th, but that was the only run, so it landed 5. So I think plus money's worth the play here. I think there's a little bit of value on that front.
So before we get to the next game, folks, if you're with us right now, we appreciate that you're watching us live. The chat is open. If you have a question, if you have a comment, throw it in the chat. We will read it. Duncan Evans says, "Hi, gents from the UK. Looking forward to hearing your plays this evening." I wonder if in recent years, if obviously we do a lot of shows here at Betting Weekly and Bet Rivers that involve soccer and tennis and sports that are generally more popular in England. Although, what the hell do I know? I've never been to England. I don't know what's popular. I'm just assuming those things are more popular. And I would never think of baseball being popular in England. And I wonder what it's like. I wonder if there is much betting on baseball across the pond.
Well, I can't speak to the culture of betting. I know it's
Yeah.
much more part of the fabric of sports watching, and they have punters and terms like that. And it's not as much of a stigma as it here stateside. Now, since legalization, that stigma's been softened and it's sort of gone the lottery ticket route or things like that. But the action junkies exist everywhere, right? So we
Sure.
have Russian ping pong still generates a handle. Tennis on all day. I know there's a lot of activity in that regard, stateside, even though it's like you said, predominantly bet overseas. So
Right.
I would imagine that the reverse is true too. I imagine there's some baseball action going on overseas in the UK. Like Duncan Evans, man. He's not saying, "Hi, gents, can you give me a soccer or tennis play?" He's
Right.
saying, "I'm looking forward to some action here. Let's fire on some baseball."
Yeah, he also followed it up by saying, quite a lot of action in the UK. We have live games on one of our major sports channels. So there you go. By the way, this show is, of course, part of Betting Weekly, the Betting Weekly Studios lineup, which continues to expand. 11 a.m. Eastern every weekday is Betting Weekly live. That tons of soccer talk, of course. I know nothing about soccer, but the guys who host that show, they know everything. I've watched the
Right.
show. Sometimes it's like they're talking a foreign language because I don't know enough about soccer to make an educated bet. But if there are a ton of people that love betting on soccer, and if you're one of those people, and if you're not watching that show already, I don't know what you're doing, because obviously they have great coverage at 1:00. Betting Weekly Tennis Live. My buddy Dustin Fox, my former radio partner, is one of the hosts on that show. And then, of course, this show and Betting Weekly Fast Break, which Doug hosts as well, which will be on at 3:00 Eastern. So check out all the shows and everything we're doing at Bet Rivers, including my podcast and Mike Francesa's podcast. And there's a lot of cool stuff, and we're continuing to expand. Doug, I want to get to another game that you have interest in, and that's the Phillies and the Rays. That game in Tampa at the Yankees minor league complex, of course.
We talked about gut feels and stuff like that. This Phillies lineup just hitting, man. And I'm going to be looking to back them at all opportunities. And I'm okay fading Shane Baz. He has not pitched well at home against good lineups. So against the Yankees and even the Royals, he got touched up too. He did pitch great in San Diego, but I don't know, man. Like I just want to go to the foxhole with this Phillies lineup, and it's a relatively cheap price. And I'm a little uneasy about the bullpens involved, and I'm just fine backing Christopher Sanchez. So I'm going to go first 5 for a half unit on the Phillies. Now you got to pay a higher money line than you would for the game line. We talked a little bit about that yesterday with it's factoring in what you see, but it's going to cost you a little more to bet the Phillies in the first 5 at -137. You eliminate the bullpen, and then obviously the home team does have strategically an advantage, right? Later innings, you can do certain things, especially ghost runners in the extra innings. And then there's the whole push component. You can't push on a game bet, but you can push on a first 5 bet. So if you're okay with that, which I always am, if the bet still has value, I'll still do a half unit to win a half unit at -137. I just think this Phillies offense is starting to get hot. Like I said this a couple weeks ago, the Dodgers lineup will start to get hot when they had lost a few in a row. Not saying it's happened, but there's going to be stretches where these lineups just start. You don't want to get in front of that freight train. And, they've scored in the last 3 games. They've scored 7, 9, and 8. So I just want to back them. I think they're getting hot. I mean, they've been hot all year. Schwarber's been an animal, but this is a team I want to be backing, not Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and their lineup has gotten hotter, even hotter lately.
Right.
So, I'm not making that an official pick myself, but I like I'm leaning in your direction personally.
Yeah, I mean, I could perfectly dissect against right-handed pit, all that stuff, but a lot of these stats, and we talked about it with Paul Skeens in terms of the last time he faced St. Louis, it was 30 degrees temperatures, wind chills in the 20s. Like some of this, they were playing winter baseball, even though it's the boys of summer in April. But I just, when you see what you see, and they feed off energy, and baseball's a funny thing. You get momentum in the clubhouse, you get a little bounce in the step. The rookie haze, all that stuff. It's just there's a good vibe and a good flow to things. And I think you want to kind of press on that. I'm not saying it's quite like the blackjack table with your buddies, because that is literally just in the cards. But there is an element of a vibe that I think lends itself to seeing the ball a little better and having better judgment at the plate on the borderline pitches and just being more attentive and defensively and stuff like that. I think it does translate and make and it comes out in the product.
So, Doug, last game I wanted to hit on, this is a game, I got a few different things that I like, and that's the Twins playing the Orioles. So, the game's in Minnesota. Simeon Woods Richardson pitching for the Twins, longest last name in baseball. He's been fine. Nothing spectacular there, but he's been fine. And the Twins, who got off to a terrible start, are playing much better baseball. They're 10-6 at home. Meanwhile, the Orioles are having a miserable season, particularly on the road. They are 5-12 on the road. The starting pitcher for the Orioles today is Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton, unfortunately, he's had a nice career, is done. He's finished. His career is about to be over. I don't mean to be so cavalier about it, but that's life. He's 41, I think, 41 and a half. I mean, the guy's old as dirt. He can't pitch anymore. He's got an ERA almost 10. And they took him out of the rotation. They were using him following an opener. Now they're putting him, at least for one start, back in the rotation. So we had a parlay at Bet Rivers that I like here. It's the Twins to score first and win plus 200. To me, it's a no-brainer. I understand the Orioles get up first. Now it's plus 195. So the Orioles get up first, so obviously they have the opportunity to score first, and so that you take a risk with that. But if
getting plus 195,
right? It's plus 195. Why not? If the Twins, if the Orioles don't score, which they could, obviously you never know. I think it's about as slam dunk as anything that the Twins will score in the bottom of the first. You set up your lineup, top of the lineup. Morton's been horrendous. He's giving up more than a run per inning. And so I'd be stunned if they don't score in the bottom of the first. I expect them to win the game. And in addition to that, I would also bet the Twins run line, or over 4.5. The Twins total.
The team total.
Twins team total of over 4.5, because, like I said, Charlie Morton stinks, and not only does he stink, their bullpen's been bad. They've had one of the worst bullpens in the league so far. So that combination for the Twins to just get 5 runs when they've been pretty good lately, I love it. There's not enough bets I can make on the Twins against the Orioles tonight.
Okay. I have another bet in case that interests you. You said you like the idea of the Twins scoring in the bottom of the first. They're over under of runs, over a half for the Twins in the first inning alone.
Add it
plus
in.
190. Plus 190 at Bet Rivers.
Oh, I love that too. I missed that one. So I love that too. Because a
lot of ways to attack it.
Yes, that's it. Bet on all of it when it comes to the Twins against the Orioles. All right, Doug, that's going to do it for us today. It's been a lot of fun. Hope everybody enjoyed it. What do you got going on the hardwood next?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's great being together, Adam. Love you're a total pro in the industry, so I've really enjoyed the last couple of days. Looking forward to tomorrow as well. And coming up top of the hour, every weekday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, Betting Weekly Fast Break. Obviously, such news right now in the NBA playoffs. We're going to try to process it all, digest it. What can we extrapolate and project for the next games? We have 2 more games tonight, double-digit spreads tonight, both games, and tomorrow with the Steph Curry news. So we're going to break down some games, and are the underdogs just going to win outright every game? Like, that's the question. But we'll catch you in about 15 minutes, top of the hour. another extension of the Betting Weekly brand.
And thanks, everybody, for joining us. Thanks to all the fans. We appreciate you. Those who put in some messages in the chat. Keep spreading the word about us. Thanks to Chris and Alex for producing today. We'll talk to you next time. That's tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, right here, Betting Weekly Hardball from the Betting Weekly Studios and Bet Rivers. Thanks, everybody.